Welcome back to Unsolved Florida. Today we're going back to Ocala in 2004 to talk about a tragic hit and run of Stephanie Whitler. So it's a Monday night on March 22nd, 2004. Imagine Ocala, Florida, 22 years ago. So you're out on State Road 200 heading towards the retirement communities. It's a flat road, it's dark, there's really no traffic. At around 9 o'clock on a Monday night, the spring break traffic hasn't really hit the area. A mile away, inside the Paddock Mall, a group of friends, they're laughing, they're watching the clock, and waiting for the mall to kick them out so they can go do what 20-somethings did on a Monday night in 2004, grab some milkshakes, go play some pool. So among these friends is Nancy, and she is waiting on her best friend, 21-year-old Stephanie. Suddenly, Nancy's pager goes off. It's Stephanie. Nancy finds the phone and calls her right back. Stephanie's voice is hurried, but she's normal. She explains she's running a little bit behind. She's on her way back from her sister's house and rushing to meet up with the crew and a guy named Angel who Nancy had just introduced her to. Before they hang up, they tell each other the true thing best friends say without even thinking twice. I love you too. So they hang up and Nancy and her friends are still waiting. They wait until the mall basically closes. And then figuring Stephanie just went straight to the after hangout spot, they head over to Steak and Shake on State Road 200, right next to the interstate. All of her friends, they sit in a booth, they order milkshakes, they talk, laugh, but they can't help but notice that the time is kind of going by and Stephanie's still not there. What Nancy didn't know, what none of her friends sitting in that brightly lit dinner could have possibly imagined, was that exactly 1 mile down the road in the pitch black, a nightmare had already happened. Just minutes after that phone call, Stephanie's car slowed to a crawl on State Road 200 and died. It had completely run out of gas. So she managed to pull it over into the left lane of the road, she shifted it into neutral, and she got out of the vehicle. It's unclear if her headlights were on or not. I haven't read anything in the reports that say they were on. And in 2004, and with her vehicle, I don't really know the specifics. But note in this article, it says that traffic often goes really fast down this stretch of the highway because it's usually not busy, especially at night. So out of the darkness came a large SUV. It was moving fast and it hit Stephanie very hard. So hard, in fact, that it dragged her body about 100 feet down the asphalt. And instead of stopping, the driver just hits the gas and vanishes into the Florida night. A very short time later, a car full of spring breakers were driving down the same road and saw something on the side of the highway. When they slowed down, they actually turned around to get a closer look and realized what had happened. So, of course, they immediately called 911, and when the police arrived, they found Stephanie's empty car. The door was still open, the tank was dry, and a mile away, her friends were still looking at the door of the Steak and Shake, waiting for her to walk through it. So the investigators searched the debris left behind on the pavement, and amid the shattered glass and plastic, they only found one real clue: paint transfer and parts belonging to an early to mid-90s full-size dark green Chevrolet Suburban or GMC Yukon. Keep in mind, it's like the same manufacturer. So this was a massive SUV. It would have returned home that night with severe and very noticeable front-end damage. Police were hoping that someone would notice their neighbor or their coworker having, kind of a mangled green Suburban in a garage or in their driveway or, at the parking lot at work. But unfortunately, no one called it in. There were no leads, and the case went cold. And on top of that, there's a devastating legal twist. So in Florida, at the time, the statute of limitations for a fatal hit and run was hardly anything, which to me is crazy because it's essentially murder or manslaughter. So once the statute ran out, the police kind of stopped looking. I just love this picture. It speaks so much to me. So for years, Nancy and her friends stood out on the shoulder of State Road 200 right where the accident happened. They handmade these signs. They placed a cross. They would bring flowers. They even put up a billboard just kind of as like a plea to the thousands of drivers going by every day. Perhaps one of those people is the person who killed their friend. But today, 22 years later, there's still no information. Well, you might be asking yourself, if the statute of limitations has run out, what can even be done now? If the person responsible came forward tomorrow, could they even be arrested? Could they be prosecuted? And while the legal technicalities are complicated, and it being 22 years later makes, a courtroom situation a lot more difficult, let's be entirely clear about one thing. The legal clock running out does not mean this case is closed. Of course, law enforcement still wants the case solved. Even if a confession cannot bring civil accountability, it brings exposure. It brings an end to the agonizing guessing game that Stephanie's friends and family have been forced to play for over 2 decades. The law might have an expiration date, but the truth does not. So if you lived in Ocala in March of 2004, if you remember a friend, a neighbor, coworker who suddenly had major front end damage on a dark green 90s Suburban or GMC Yukon, if you are the person who is behind the wheel that night, carrying a burden that surely has grown too heavy to bear, it's time to speak up. Do it for Nancy, do it for Stephanie's father, do it for the 9-year-old who carries Stephanie's name today. If you have any information, no matter how small or insignificant you think it might be, please contact the Marion County Sheriff's Office or the Florida State Patrol. If you want to remain completely anonymous, you can always call the Crime Stoppers of Marion County. Let's not let another year pass in silence. In all respect, I do sometimes like to offer my thoughts on these cases because as a true crime consumer myself, discussion is one of the best parts of consuming true crime. I have a feeling, since this wasn't a huge city area, that the person likely responsible wasn't from the area. So many people drive through Florida every day. It's one of the most popular vacation spots. We have so much coastline, so many vacation spots. I really have a feeling that this case isn't solved because the driver was not from the area. They were not a local. I talked in the other part 1. I made 2 videos just because I wanted to make this one a little bit more fact-based and a little bit more information. I did say that there are other legal loopholes that police and prosecutors can go through, such as if they left the state of Florida immediately following the accident to prevent prosecution, or if in any way someone helped them cover up the crime, such as like helping them get rid of the vehicle or fix it up, disguise it, things like that. So there are things that still could be done. Of course, it's not a murder charge or a vehicular manslaughter charge, but there are still things. Please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Have you heard of this case? Thank you so much to Nancy for sending me the video and giving us the honor to talk about your best friend Stephanie. Thank you to everyone who is watching these videos, sharing, and supporting our page. Again, if you are from Ocala, if you have friends in Ocala, or you currently live there, please consider sharing this video. You never know who will see it. That's all I have for today. Thank you for watching Unsolved Florida, and we'll see you next time.